And welcome to episode 2 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I'm Cam Kane.
I'm Sahil Shah.
And we got an exciting episode today. It's our first episode after the finals. I know the finals were a couple weeks ago, but we're just now getting around to talking about them.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about what a great matchup that was for me.
And we've also got the losing manager. He's going to be on in a little bit, Zane Harding. He had a phenomenal season with the executive batting order, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about his strategy in the finals and what his team looks like going forward.
Absolutely. No, looking forward to having him.
After that, we'll have a very special guest. League Commissioner Erik McKeen will talk about a couple rule changes that we have in the league, and as well as something really exciting, which is going to be our awards voting, which should have started already and will be lasting until the end of the week.
Definitely. I'm really excited to vote for the awards. I know that there are a lot of great players this year deserving of the votes, and it's going to be really interesting to see just how people decide how to allocate their votes.
Exactly. So let's first of all, let's start our show by talking about a couple things that have happened around the league within the past couple of weeks. First of all, one thing I know we wanted to talk about was Alex Colome. Alex Fisher swooped in on him, and I think that was could be a really good addition to his team.
Yeah, Colome had a great season for the White Sox. I believe he had an ERA close to 1. And he had the closer's job just locked down and, pitching for a winning team. He did great. Actually, a .81 ERA, so even better than I thought. I cut him, Trevor Rosenthal, and Chris Taylor during the finals with the expectation to pick up holds guys, and then the expectation that I could get some holds that could help me beat EBO. Not only did I not end up getting a hold from any of the guys I picked up, but I didn't actually need to hold to beat EBO. I got one from Gallegos in the finals, but I didn't need any more. So I did win the championship, so I'm happy about that. And I kind of had an idea that I would lose at least 1 or 2 of those players, and I ended up losing Colome and Chris Taylor. And I did pick up Trevor Rosenthal again, who ended up being a nice trade chip to acquire Zach Greinke a few days ago. But I think it'll be a good pickup for Alex. He's a good, solid closer. I don't think maybe he has the upside of some of the top guys like a Liam Hendricks or a Josh Hader, but I mean, he's been a consistent bullpen guy for many years for multiple teams, and very good use of a waiver claim by Alex.
Yeah, I agree. Good closers on good teams aren't just available on free agency all the time. So I think really, really smart pickup by Alex. There was a little bit of a mad dash to get Colome. A lot of teams were in on him, I heard. 2 years ago, I had joked about maybe teams will be trading for waiver spots in the future, and now we see why maybe that's not so crazy when there's a guy like Colome on waivers at the end of the season.
Absolutely, and actually one thing that surprised me was that Connor had the number 1 overall claim and didn't put in a claim for Colome. As a White Sox fan, you would think that would be the type of guy he'd want to pick up. But, good for Alex being able to get him at number 2.
Yeah, especially Connor has Josh Hader already. That could be maybe one of the best saves teams in the league.
Oh, absolutely. Hader and Colome would be a great 1-2 punch. Lots of strikeouts there too. I think Connor has a plan, and I think he's just really going to stick to it. So,
and now Colome is on the number 6 team from this past year, a team that already has Raisel Iglesias, who's got a bit of an iffy closer situation. So definitely could be a big help for the Acuna Matatas to have a guy who is pretty much set in that closer role and should hopefully for Alex's sake, flip a couple matchups during next season.
Well, Acuna and Matata without Acuna. Yes, I agree. I definitely think he'll be an important source of saves and can suppress the ERA and WHIP for him next year, or maybe serve as a good trade chip down the road. So.
Yeah, that pitching staff in general, he's got Brandon Woodruff, Framber Valdez, Justice Sheffield, Casey Mize, has a lot of guys who could be really high upside for next season. His team's going to be very interesting to watch.
Oh, absolutely. I know it was interesting to see, him get rid of Max Fried and Sixto Sanchez, but I feel like he's acquired a lot of interesting young talent over some of these past few trades. I know Spencer Howard's also a name that, he's really high on. So it'll be interesting to see, how his team develops, because I think he has a pretty solid offense already. And I think there's definitely some potential there if these guys really pan out.
Exactly, yeah. And we'll be talking about those trades in the next matchup. But Max Fried, my God, that man has been on the move lately.
Oh, he really has. I'm very much enjoying the fact he's on my roster now. He rounds out what I believe to be a very nice pitching staff. So,
well, someone suggested maybe we discuss a trade for him live on air. I would not be opposed to that idea.
It would just be 30 minutes of me just getting more annoyed with you as you just offer up Yu Darvish and random second pieces. But I would welcome the opportunity to hear from you and see what exactly you would offer. But, I'm really high on Fried. I think that he's a top 10 to 15 dynasty starting pitcher. He's only 26, or he might be 27 next year. And those assets don't grow on trees. My only knock on him is I wish he got a little deeper into games this year, but I still think that, his soft contact numbers are fantastic. I know the slider and the curveball are two really strong pitches for him. And I feel like kind of his pitch mix, he's really put some more emphasis on that slider in recent years, and I think that's made a difference. And I'm excited to have him anchoring my rotation for hopefully the next 5 to 8 years.
Maybe, and hopefully he'll be anchoring mine over the next 5-10 years.
We'll see about that. We'll see if you can sneak a good offer or two in here. You and I made quite a few good trades this past offseason, so you never know.
Yeah, we made 2 blockbusters that I think worked. They both worked out really well for both teams.
Oh, absolutely. Both the Barrios deal and the Torres deal, both I feel like really worked out for us.
All right. So with this being our first episode since the finals, I know we're going to talk about it with Zane in a couple minutes, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention in the intro that you are our new league champion for the first time. Congratulations.
I am. Thank you. Nice to have the ring on my finger. And I am so excited that I finally won the league. I felt a lot of pressure, with the roster that I built and with the frustrating loss in the finals to Erik last year. And it was nice for me to finally come out on top. Now, it wasn't easy. Getting the bye was nice, but the semis matchup and the finals matchup, as you know, both came down right to the wire. And then the finals matchup, too, I thought was arguably a bit trickier to handle because I knew going into the week, just with the EBO strategy that, ERA, whip, saves, stolen bases, and presumably holds, which actually didn't turn out that way. I thought that those 5 categories were going to go were locks for EBO, which meant that I had to really just win all the other categories. There was not really much of a margin for error. And luckily, my bats came alive, especially on that last day. I mean, with an OBP close to 500, and really just helped me take a commanding lead over EBO. And obviously a great season for my team, but also, a great season for EBO, for you, for Ruthvik. I mean, a couple ABs here and there, or a couple lesser in runs given up here and there. And things can have ended up very differently. I mean, the finals could have easily been you versus Ruthvik. I know the semis matchups kind of at the end of that day, looked like that might be what the end result was. It would have been a finals between you two. And I think it would have been realistic to say that any of the 4 teams in the semis could have won it this year, kind of given the way the matchups played out. And I know that had you made the finals, your team had a particularly good week that week, and maybe we'd be having a very different conversation right now. So
if only.
Yeah, great season by all. I definitely feel very good about my regular season and kind of the point differential in the Rado standings, but I think we have a very close glut of teams up there at the top, and I'll be really excited to see how things develop.
There's 11 teams gunning for your neck right now.
Yeah, 11 teams gunning for my neck, and I know some of them have already made some big moves. EBO has made a lot of trades. It seems like they're building a strategy specifically designed to beat teams like Yumi and Ruthvik, who have kind of put more emphasis on starting pitching in the finals. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it, and I think the league is more competitive and harder than ever, which is all I ever wanted, was some good competition.
Exactly. All right, we're going to take a quick break right now, but we'll be right back with Executive Batting Order co-owner and league runner-up Zane Harding.
We'll go slow and high tempo, light and dark. Hold me hard and mellow. I'm seeing the pain, seeing the pleasure. Nobody but you, body but me, body but us, bodies together.
All right, we're here now with Zane Harding, co-owner of the Executive Batting Order, this year's runner-up. How are you feeling, Zane?
Terrible. Can't believe we lost. 0 out of 10. No, I'm joking. I'm feeling pretty good. Just had my first day of work, actually. Just started a classroom assistant position in a first and second grade class. And it kind of reminded me of the time that everyone freaked out about you and Duncan benching your entire lineup to tank cam. It was just like a first grade classroom in there. So
Okay, that's fair. It's very fair. That's cool though, son. You've got a way to take your mind off the crippling losses your team has taken.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, before we talk about the finals matchup, let's talk a little bit about your semifinals win over Ruthvik. It was definitely a close matchup, but you ended up coming through in the end. What were your thoughts on what you guys did and what your strategy was in the semis?
Yeah, for sure. So the matchup with Ruthvik was really a challenge to navigate. We had no clear strategy to how we were going to approach going into the matchup. We obviously knew that Ruthvik was a pitching powerhouse this year in 2020 with Shane Bieber and Jacob deGrom. And we were worried that basically every pitching category was going to be off the table. We figured that strikeouts and quality starts were very unlikely on our end, but we thought that ERA and WHIP would be a major issue as well. Obviously, with the bullpen categories, we try to target those when we can, just because of all the closers we've acquired. That wasn't even intentional. That was just everyone keeps saying, Aroldis Chapman's going to be in this deal. Oh, Brad Hand is in this deal. And all of a sudden we had a bullpen that we were like, okay, we can work with this. Unfortunately, only getting saves and never holds, because every closer we touch turns into a saves guy, not a holds guy. And our whole strategy was going to be overpower Ruthvik with the bats. So we get in, 3 days into the matchup. I don't know if you guys remember from the start of it, because I know you were very focused on your matchup, but Ruthvik and I were pretty neck and neck with the pitching, surprisingly enough, through the first couple of days, because I streamed Mike Minor's only win of the season for the A's, his complete game, and I streamed Antonio Senzatella's complete game too. So he was like, what the hell? How is this happening? And then reality came crashing back. We had 3 total quality starts, and 2 of those were the complete games I streamed. And Ruthvik finished with 7 and nearly 100 strikeouts. And when I say that, it sounds like a ton, but Sahil had 104 strikeouts in the other matchup, and Cam, you had 80 yourself, and both of you had same or more quality starts than Ruthvik. So yeah, that really turned into an interesting matchup. I know what you guys want to hear from me is about the strategy we took into the second half of the weekend, because we started benching a couple of starters. And obviously that continued into the matchup with Sahil. But yeah, at a certain point, we're like, okay, if Ruthvik for some reason starts Matt Boyd on Sunday, we can win ERA. And then Ruthvik started Matt Boyd on Sunday, and he won whip because Matt Boyd gave up. He let in like 5 straight base runners. It was like playing Sahil on the last day, except we were Matt Boyd and Sahil was scoring 5 of his first 6 guys to hit in the final day of the matchup. So I guess in a way, karma came back around for the fact that we probably shouldn't have been in the finals. But I will take that Matt Boyd mishap. And all in all, I thought we put ourselves in the position to win should he make that mistake. But yeah, we really scathed by.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I thought when you benched Jesus Luzardo on Friday that the matchup was over. Because I believe he pitched 6 scoreless innings, and I thought that was really going to help in ERA and whip. But, just really, I know your offense came up with some clutch hits, especially there towards the end of the week. I know on Sunday it looked like RBIs might go in Ruthvik's favor, and then it swung over to your favor in the last second. And, there's some concerns that some of your relievers, I want to say Blake Trinan you had a bad game that Sunday, and almost kind of blew it and maybe could have affected your ERA. I think luckily for you, you still won that category. But, definitely a close matchup. And, I have to say, Cam and I talked about this last week, but arguably the best week of playoffs in league history.
Absolutely, yeah. The Blake Trinan Sunday blow-up was an issue because I think we had a couple of relievers coming in after that, and we were just like, oh my God, if one more comes in and does something terrible, then we're in a bad spot. And earlier in the week, obviously I made a bunch of different moves in an attempt to at first get ahead in the maybe get into the strikeout quality start race. But also the entire time we were trying to figure out who we can get a hold from. And when we streamed Jeff Hartlieb, I kept referring to it as the Hartlieb incident in the chat just because it sounds like the title of something. But he came in, didn't get a single out, gave up 2 earned runs, walked 4 straight batters. And it took like a miracle because he left with the bases loaded and nobody out. We were like, oh my God, he's going to give up 6 earned runs. or he's going to give up all 4 of the runs that he had because he had 2 on when he came in. So he was going to have 4 earned runs and then wiggled out of it. That might have made the difference. I haven't actually gone in and calculated. But yeah, there were certain things like that popped up that were like a little bit of panic. And I tried to adjust the strategy slightly when matching up against you, Sahil, and not leave relievers in that I had a bad feeling about. The last day, I actually was going to leave more on the bench than I did, but I ended up putting like Chapman back in and maybe somebody else. But that was just to like try and keep myself in the race to win whip in the event that your pitchers absolutely went off on the final day. But guys like Mark Melanson, I had to sit for the last few days of the final matchup because I was concerned about a potential like blow up. I think I sat Sergio Romo once or twice too.
Let's talk about some of those benching decisions actually, because I think the decision in the finals that you made that shocked me the most was you deciding that the one starting pitcher you started would be Kenta Maeda and, not someone like a Max Scherzer. Can you explain the thought process behind that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. Going into the matchup with you, Sahil, I knew that there was no chance of me matching up in the strikeout or quality start race. You didn't even have a great week by your pitching standards with your strikeouts or your quality starts. And either totals from Ruthvik or Cam from the previous week and yourself they were all way higher than this week. And yet we were able to muster maybe half of that. And the quality starts thing was basically out of the picture. I decided once if we were going to go all in on the bullpen categories, saves and holds, but also given the strength of our bullpen, ERA and WHIP, that we were going to limit the starters. We went to the starters that we threw out there to the bare minimum guys, only matchups that we really liked. So we looked at it, and I told Max, I was like, I know Max Scherzer has been our guy for all 3 years in this league, but he's facing the Mets, and 2 of the last 3 home starts he's had, he's blown up, and we could lose ERA just on that. So we decided to bench Max Scherzer. We went with Kenta Maeda against the Tigers because his past 2 starts against Detroit were 6 innings, 3 earned run, quality starts. Not amazing, but we thought it would be reliable, and then he gave up exactly that again. And the 3 earned runs all came at once at the end of the game, at the end of his start, again on a 3-run Miguel Cabrera home run. But we didn't start Jesus Luzardo because he came in relief for Oakland in a game in the middle of the week and had a bad outing. So that deterred us from starting him. I really thought about putting in Julio Urias as a guy to come in, because he was coming in out of the bullpen following an opener, and he had a great start, quote unquote. But at the end of the day, we really wanted to target ERA and WHIP. We won both of those categories, and we won saves too. And holds, it sucks that we tied. I'm definitely going to leave more space to get an extra hold or 2 next year on the roster. But that's just a category that's really hard to predict. It is that fun wild card category, but even then we tied it, and you had the higher seed this year, so it didn't make a difference in the end. So yeah, that was really our strategy with the pitching. Hitting, we were putting in every bat we could at all times. Unfortunately, the OBP race flipped on the final day, but the only thing we could have done was maybe bench everyone except Mike Yastrzemski, Joey Votto, and there was one more bat that was really hot in our lineup, maybe Jesus Aguilar. Oh yeah, Trey Turner. We had like 3 bats that I really was trusting throughout the entire playoffs on any given day. Sure, if we had played all 4 of those guys and nobody else, we might have still come through with on base percentage, just because those guys would have combined for like an 800 on base percentage in that day. But that would have been really gutsy, knowing that we were 2 runs ahead entering the final day.
And yeah, back on the holds question, you had mentioned going all in on relievers, yet you still only ended up with 1 hold, tied 1-1. What exactly did go wrong there, and was there consideration either before the week or during the week to pick up a bunch of holds guys and try and stream those, since pretty unlikely for another Hartleave incident to happen?
Yeah, the holds, I mean, the problem is we came into this year with Ryan Presley being an incredible source of holds. Sergio Romo, when we picked him up, was a holds guy. Jeremy Jeffress, when we picked him up, was a holds guy. So we have all these guys that we have like 3 of the guys when they were going at it. They were 3 of the best holds guys this year to have when they were picking up holds in a 8th inning role. And then all 3 of those guys became the primary closer of their team. So I knew that we had to address it in the matchup. We picked up Jesse Hahn, who got our only hold of the week. We got 2 different innings from Trevor May, who we picked up on waivers towards the end, and he didn't come in and get a hold in either of those innings. I think that might have all been 1 outing. I don't remember. But we picked up Chris Martin, who had been a holds god and an ERA and WHIP god coming in since he was activated off the IL. And then he had a 9 ERA and 3.0 WHIP in 1 inning and didn't get a hold. So all in all, it was I feel like a lot of bad luck. Craig Kimbrell, we were quietly hoping might pick up like a stray hold, even though we knew he wasn't getting any. And he's just been a really reliable ERA and WHIP guy since we picked him up off of waivers after that horrible start to the year. We knew saves were in the bag. We got 3 from Brad Hand. we got 2 from Jesse Hahn, who was turned into a closer at the end of the Royals season. I don't know why he picked up the last 2 saves for them, but he did. So that's really the story there with holds. We picked up 4 different guys for us, turned into saves guys throughout the season, and one of them happened during the finals matchup.
Jesse Hahn in particular, that guy. I traded for Ian Kennedy before the season thinking, oh, he's their guy. It's clear that he's their guy. And that very much did not happen. And it'll be interesting to see maybe someone this offseason could pick up someone they think will be the guy.
Yeah, for sure.
I know Eric's shopping Josh Stomont. Maybe it's him. Who knows?
It's definitely an interesting bullpen. So moving forward, though, I think one of the things that was interesting to me is you spent a lot of the trade deadline acquiring starters. I mean, I know Luzardo and Urias were the big 2, but I mean, you made a bunch of trades for starting pitching. Do you expect, moving forward next year that you're going to have more of a bullpen-centric strategy, or do you think that you're going to kind of swing the pendulum back the other way and try to build that rotation, maybe with some of the guys you have coming back from injury and also some of the young guys that you acquired at the trade deadline?
That's a tough decision for us to make. Right now, obviously, if I had to go back in time, the deal with Connor, I do like the value we got out of it. I think Jesus Luzardo, as a 22-year-old, very impressive pitcher, is great to have on our roster and has drawn a lot of trade interest, even when we're not actively shopping him. Julio Urias, he had a great end to the season and I think has increased his value since we picked him up, and he himself is under the age of 25, so that's another great pickup. But if we were looking at our playoff strategy, Josh Hader and Ozzie Albies, man, those would be 2 guys that would be great to have on our team right now. I'm not upset about losing a first-round pick in this draft, to be blunt with you guys. The only guy I would really be interested in having out of the draft at the moment, having not seen anybody, is Torkelson, purely on the fact that I have that strong Tigers bias in my farm. But the pitching is going to be totally up in the air. I mean, if you look at RIL, we lost 3 aces to the IL this season: Justin Verlander, Chris Sale, and Steven Strasburg. Justin Verlander out for all of next season. If he comes back the year after, he will be 39 years old. We failed to trade him before his value plummeted from this injury. And we're going to have to hope that he has a Nolan Ryan-esque end to his career. We have nothing to lose holding on to him, so obviously we will. Chris Sale, I'm excited to have him back next season. He's definitely going to be – I've had people inquire on him before. I just don't want to sell while he's too low. No pun intended talking about sales with Chris Sale. But Steven Strasburg, obviously we like a lot. He's still not old in the same way that our pitching has been old the past couple of years, relying on Verlander and Scherzer. But Scherzer is getting up there in age. Still, I mean, this was probably his worst season in a while. I didn't actually go back and look, but if I had to guess off the top of my head, it was probably his worst season since 2010, which is 10 years ago. So that's concerning. Kenta Maeda was a great breakthrough. Frankie Montas, his final start gave me hope. 13 strikeouts. I did not see that coming. It's going to be tough. We could pursue more pitching, which is challenging when you two and Ruthvik own most of the pitching in the league that we do not already have. We could pursue bullpen, which is really bold because we're punting 2 categories, which I know, Erik, we saw it very clearly in the spreadsheet, punts on saves, and does just fine in head-to-head, does just fine in winning championships in normal years. But punting 2 categories would be kind of the opposite of that and would be very risky. So it's kind of up in the air. Max and I have talked about it. it honestly might be determined by where the trade market goes. We have Casey Mize, Matt Manning, and Tarek Skubal all waiting in the wings in the minor leagues. I know at least one of the three is probably going to pan out by prospect odds. Knowing the Tigers' development system, maybe none of them pan out. But I did like what I saw from Tarek Skubal. I do feel better about Casey Mize after watching the last start or two. I was getting really worried, but now I feel solid. Sometimes guys come up first year, and I mean, Verlander was bad his first couple starts in 2005. And Casey Mize somehow worked through most of, like, at least half of his starts without a splitter, which is his pitch. So that's a really good sign. I don't know. I'm kind of debating it while talking on the podcast. So you guys are kind of getting an inside look at me debating whether I want to go starters or relief pitchers. I wouldn't be shocked to see a balance unless somebody pays really high for somebody that I don't expect, like a deal, and I get offered something. I'm just like, oh, wow. I think we'll probably keep a balance. I just don't trust relievers enough year to year. Sergio Romo, I mean, just had that blow up in his last couple of games, and in his in that horrible moment for the Twins in the playoffs. And I get the rest of the relievers are fine, but like, just look at Craig Kimbrell. He's fine for us now, in my opinion, going forward. But is he going to have like a clear defined role? I don't know. He was really bad at a clear defined role to enter the year. So it's a bit more of a toss up. You can't rely on a guy like we relied on Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander and just like leaned on them so hard the first 2 years. But at the same time, those guys get injured so easily too. We had 3 aces on the IL. My God. So yeah, I don't know is the answer. Thank you for putting Matt Barnes on waivers. I can't wait for him to not have a job next year because he wasn't even that good.
Right. And yeah, you did make an interesting point about all the starting pitchers kind of finding their way to the same couple teams. Yeah, there are fewer and fewer good guys out there. But yeah, it's very interesting to see if 9 different teams are punting starting pitching categories. What's the league even going to look like next year?
I haven't even thought about if everyone else adopted my strategy, but you know what? Hey, if you are one of the 3 teams, if you're one of the 9 teams that don't have Cam and Ruthvik and Sahil starting pitching guys, it's not a bad strat. I mean, I was one incredible offensive day from Sahil away from winning the title, and sometimes they will start the wrong guy for no reason. Matt Boyd pitched twice in a playoff game. You can do it without starting pitching. And Sahil, I also want to add in, congrats on the title. Very well deserved. I cannot believe that you have Sonny Gray, Garrett Cole, Aaron Nola, Jack Flaherty, Patrick Corbin, Zach Greinke, Jose Barrios, and Kyle Hendricks, and Carlos Carrasco all in the same pitching rotation. And a couple of those guys didn't have the greatest week, but like, I consider all those guys like an ace or a number 2 kind of guy. And even now, how do you pronounce his name? Jose
Urquidy.
Yeah. I mean, he had a great ERA and whip in his 30 innings for you this year. So
he had 3 quality starts for me during the playoffs, tied with Carrasco. I almost picked him to be my pitching, my playoff pitching MVP. No, he was great. You know, I appreciate the congrats. I mean, always a pleasure playing you. I think between the Dynasty Baseball and Dynasty Football leagues now, I've played you 3 times in the playoffs, and this was my first win. So nice to finally get a W off of you in one of these playoff matchups, in what I would say is arguably the biggest rivalry in our Dynasty Baseball league.
Yeah, you chose a great time to pick up that first playoff win against us. I was going to say the same thing to Ruthvik if he won, because he has pointed out that he's now 0-7 against the EBO between the 2 leagues. But yeah, I mean, that final day, let's just talk about that for 1 second.
Yeah.
Pete Alonso turned into 2019 Pete Alonso. That's what I remember off the top of my head was looking at Pete Alonso and going, "Are you joking?" But I want to pull up the actual final day stats if they're even accessible anymore.
Yeah, I got them up right here. And
Yeah, I was able to pull them up too. Thank you to Gary Sanchez for not walking 7 times like he did Saturday. But Carlos Correa went 2 for 2 with a homer. Pete Alonso with his 2 home runs. Jose Altuve hit a home run to lead off his game. Gurriel Jr., 4 for 4, 3 runs, 2 doubles, 1 homer, 2 RBIs. He didn't do it for the Blue Jays against the Rays, but he sure was able to get it in when it counted for you.
Oh yeah, I mean 449 OBP. I mean, I don't know how I beat that. That was literally everything went right on Sunday. I mean, it's the same thing with my matchup against Cam. I got the 4 quality starts on Sunday. Just my team just really came together and really just pulled it out. So thankful for my guys and.
Yeah, I had a horrible fantasy day across the board. It was probably my worst fantasy day in 9 years of playing. And even then, we got to score nearly 200 points on AJ in Dynasty, so that was kind of fun. But in our game, I had never seen anything quite like you had 5 guys score of your first 6 to go up to the plate.
Yep.
And right then, runs flipped from us up 2 to you up 3, and I was like, there's no way. And there were points where on base percentage was separated by like less than 0.00. I mean, it was like less than 0.01. But that still, like, I think we even right here, you finished with a .3428 on base. I finished with a .3343. So it was under that .01 amount at the end, how much we were differentiated by. But even when like it dipped and there were still a few at bats left, I was like, no, it's impossible at this point. There's not enough at bats left. Everyone played at 2:30 or 3:30. It would have been different if like half my guys were going at 7, but yeah, that was one hell of a showing by your bats at the end.
One hell of a showing, one hell of a matchup. And man, hopefully we can repeat this next year in the finals.
All right. Well, thanks again, Zane. This was really great. Do you have any quick things to say before you go?
Yeah. If you're in the Dynasty Football League, I am looking forward to getting a second ring there. By me, I mean riding Max's coattails to the finals.
Okay, the pitcher or the hitter. We're back here with League Commissioner Erik McKeen. And he's here to talk about a few different things. But first of all, we've got 2 new rule changes up for vote. And the first one has been basically passed. Is that correct, Erik?
Yes, it has passed. We are going to convert one of the bench spots to a utility. I know that helps out myself and Sahil, who has Nelson Cruz. And I think everyone will generally be pleased with getting more guys in the lineup.
For sure. And Sahil, this was basically your idea. Why don't you talk a little bit about the thought process behind it and what made you decide to propose it?
Yeah, I think partially selfishly, I have a couple bats coming off the IL and I'd like to, see them in the lineup. But I think more generally, I think the league is, more fun when we have more players that we get to track each day and really just kind of see how they're doing and have their performances count towards their scores. So I thought, it wouldn't be a bad idea to add a util spot and really be able to get another hitter in there. I also thought that maybe over the past year, there's been a bit more of a bias towards pitchers just because of more of a perceived scarcity, especially in the starting pitcher market. And I thought that this could maybe help balance out the value between hitters and pitchers, a little bit. And also, I think it was just a good idea to maybe shake things up a bit. I know that we've done that a lot with the minor league systems. I know we started with 12 spots when we first started the league, and then upped it to 15, added the non-active prospect spot, and now we're up to 20 prospect spots. And then I know we added 2 bench spots last year in the major league team, and I thought that this would be, a nice way to shake things up and generally just make it more interesting. So I'm glad to see that, everybody was on board for this. And I think that it's definitely going to make for a little more interesting trade market this offseason with teams maybe trying to acquire another hitter or two to really help fill out that extra util spot.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's not really something I had considered with how this could affect the pitchers market, but that makes sense. And I think something could maybe need to be done there just because of the same 2 to 3 teams hoarding all of the starting pitchers, and they're even still now trying to acquire more. Let's talk about the second rule change as well. That one, if I recall correctly, is not completely done. And that was something that maybe required some clarification. Is that correct?
Yeah, there were about 3 or 4 votes in the no favor. And I think maybe because people were kind of unclear about what exactly that would entail. So Sahil, I know that was your idea, so why don't you go ahead and clarify it?
Yeah, I love how I'm at the head of all these rule changes here. I think that there was an instance this season where a player's game was canceled before the game was supposed to start, and that player was locked in the lineup. And I think in those situations, you should be allowed to swap out a player. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, ESPN doesn't. So just to kind of lay this out using an example, if a player's game is supposed to start at 1 p.m. and the game is called off at 12:30 because of rain, I think that you should be able, between 12:30 and 1, to swap that player out. I don't think ESPN lets you do that, so that would require some commissioner intervention by Erik. But I think that generally should be allowed. What I do not think should be allowed, and which I think that people were voting against, are situations where the game is scheduled for 1 o'clock, and then at 1:30, the league decides to cancel the game because of inclement weather. I think in those situations, you should bear the risk of having started that player despite a knowledge that the weather conditions were not ideal, and therefore they should be locked in your lineup. I just think that it's just kind of egregious in the first one to not be able to have the full amount of time before a game to swap a player in and out of the lineup that you would normally have in a world where there wasn't a weather delay. And I don't even think that this is really going to come up all that often. But I think nonetheless, it is an important, rule. And I think it's something that did, come up a couple times this season, and I know it was a source of annoyance. So that's kind of my proposal here. And it seems like, kind of given some of the ambiguities that we might, allow for some further voting and discussion on it. And I know I'm willing to kind of clarify my position if anybody has any questions about my thoughts on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. And I didn't really realize that was a thing, that ESPN just wouldn't let you move them before the game was actually going to start. But that's just another reason why they suck.
All right. Yeah, they definitely do have their fair share of issues on ESPN. But yeah, Erik, you've been one thing you've been pushing as a fun little thing to do at the end of the season is awards voting. Can you kind of talk about what the plan is to do that and what's going to be expected for us as the voters?
Yeah, for sure. I think I was actually thinking about before the season, I was thinking about maybe doing an awards for the first 2 years, but then I kind of forgot about that. But then Sahil suggested that we do it for, I believe you suggested it, right? That we do it for this year.
I did.
Yep, at some point. And then, yeah, I know it's going to be really fun. So you want me to just list off the awards again?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep.
So basically we got first team, everything pretty much, catcher, first, second, third, short, 5 outfielders, middle infielder, corner infielder, utility, 5 starting pitchers, 2 closers, and 2 setup men. And then we also got the big ones: most improved team, most surprising trade that goes for both off-season and in-season. The next 4 actually are going to be 2 separate for off-season and in-season. We got most surprising trade, most lopsided trade, best hitter pickup, best pitcher pickup. And then, of course, the 3 big ones: Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, and MVP.
Awesome. And is best hitter and pitcher pickup, those are for ad drops, or are we including trade acquisitions in that as well?
That is ads.
Gotcha. Do you have any early favorites for any of these positions that you're thinking about voting for?
Yeah, I think Freddie Freeman's probably my MVP choice right now. I haven't done too much looking into the numbers yet, but that's just going off. I know Juan Soto's up there too with his insane on-base percentage, but I think Freeman played like a week or 2 more, didn't he?
Soto had 5 steals though, which in a very tight category made a lot of difference.
Yeah, for sure. I know Tatis might have ran away with the award if he didn't have that really bad last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's got a bright future. But yeah, definitely slumped there at the end.
Yeah, and there's this Rookie of the Year could go a lot of different directions too, like Cronenworth, Kyle Lewis, maybe even Devin Williams, Alec Colome.
And yeah, could you describe what the voting process is going to look like? I know you'd mentioned it being on a Google Doc, but how's that going to work?
Yep. After this podcast airs, I'm just going to send out a Google form to everyone, and then probably make it due a couple of days after, maybe 4 or 5 days after that. And then I'll tally them, and then you guys want to announce it on the next podcast?
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
All right, sounds good.
All right, and when is the deadline for sending our votes in?
It's going to be, I'll send it out, or I'll include it whenever I send it out, but it's probably going to be a few days after I send out the form, probably at least a day before you plan to record the next podcast.
All right, that all sounds terrific. I know I'm looking really closely at who I'm going to vote for, and I think it's going to be exciting to have our votes in for the league history and the spreadsheet, and I'm hoping it's something we can make a tradition.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of new and big things coming to this league, especially this podcast. So,
well, thank you for coming on, Erik. Definitely, I feel like we're all very excited to vote for the awards, and we will definitely keep a lookout for the announcement on the Slack channel.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.